Pro Football Focus has graded the Tigers' win at Clemson. I've got what you need to know. It's Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get great podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So LSU beats Clemson 17-10, and we have dissected this just about every way you can. I gave you my immediate post-game reaction. We dug into what Brian Kelly had to say in his post-game interaction. Something we will do every week here during the season is dive into what the folks over at Pro Football Focus see. Now, if you're an everydayer, shout out and thank you. If you're new, I often say Pro Football Focus is a metric. It's not the metric. It's just something to consider. And I particularly like Pro Football Focus because it looks at the game and their rating system in a way that we fans, media, don't. We watch the ball. We watch the quarterback. We watch the receivers. We watch who's running it, who's making the tackles. We're not watching what's happening away from the ball. Pro Football Focus is grading everything. So a lot of times why something happened may be lost to you and me, just, sort of the novice watching the game and watching the ball that they see and grade. So we'll dive into some of that. So I like to consider Pro Football Focus. And a lot of times the PFF grades sort of validate the eye test. And there's a lot of that in this game. So we'll go offense, defense, special teams is how we'll run through it. So let's start with the offense. And I want to give you the top 5 performers. So there were 22 players that took an offensive snap for LSU on Saturday. The highest graded player was Aaron Anderson. Probably not a surprise. He was LSU's leading receiver. He had 99 receiving yards and a few spectacular moments for LSU when they absolutely had to have him. In particular, his big 39-yard reception on 1st and 20 at the start of the second half after Weston Davis's holding penalty was particularly big. But time and again, especially the short passing game when things weren't developing for LSU, that was the adjustment Joe Sloan made, and Aaron Anderson was the beneficiary, and he was fantastic in this ball game. Garrett Nussmeier was the second highest rated player on offense. So Aaron Anderson, by the way, was a 79.8. Garrett Nussmeier was at a 75. If you're not familiar, Pro Football Focus kind of breaks everything down into a color-coded scheme. So like blue is when you're in the upper 80s, 90s. It's excellent, obviously. Dark green, then lighter green, then like a light yellow to the darker yellow, orange, then red is sort of the worst. So you're at a 79.8 like Aaron Anderson. You're like dark green. I mean, you're almost to the blue. As I look at the entire chart for offense, there's only one blue number, and it was Berrien Brown's run blocking grade was an 88.8. I mean, no, forgive me. Josh Thompson had an 84 in his pass blocking grade, and Braylon Moore had an 85.8 in his pass blocking grade, and Paul Mabenga had an 81 in his pass blocking grade. So forgive me. You had some pretty good pass blocking grades on the day. So number 1 was Aaron Anderson. Number 2 was Garrett Nussmeier. And the biggest thing for Nuss, obviously, in this game was he avoided what could have been the critical mistake in this game. He only took 1 sack. He avoided pressure, and he did not have a turnover-worthy throw in the game, meaning when something wasn't there, he threw it away. He ate it. He did convert 3 first downs with his feet, 2 on sneaks, and then 1 on the run around end, the design keep, where he ran for 10 yards, dove for the sticks. It was a great game for Garrett Nussmeier. Listen, Nuss's statistical total isn't the thing that's necessarily going to pop in this game. He didn't throw for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns, but I would argue that's a really good thing because, man, when Garrett Nussmeier has to throw for 350, that's generally a problem. He just didn't put the ball in harm's way, and that was fantastic. PFF only credited him with one big-time throw, but he didn't have to do that. His job was protect the football, get the team into the right running plays, the right checks, and over and again, Garrett Nussmeier did that. So Aaron Anderson, 1, Garrett Nussmeier, 2, Braylon Moore, number 3. He was absolutely outstanding, a 73.9 overall grade. His pass blocking grade was an 85.8, run blocking 67.8, and that is why you brought Braylon Moore to Baton Rouge. He was absolutely spectacular, did not allow a single pressure on 43 pass dropbacks, and, of course, helped sort of pave the way for LSU on a day where they ran for over 100 yards, and that was such a bugaboo a year ago. And one of the things I'm going to talk about here in just a quick second, though, I had the question about the interior of the offensive line, and they answered that resoundingly. I'll get to that in just a quick second. So, again, your top 5 on offense: Anderson, Nussmeier, Moore, Caden Durham, and then Trey'Dez Green. That was your top 5, and goes without saying. Green was outstanding. He drew 2 pass interference penalties. He had 2 receptions on the day, 1 being a touchdown. He was awesome. If you go look at the bottom 5, your lowest rated player was Chris Hilton Jr., then Bauer Sharp, Weston Davis, Nick Anderson, Paul Mabenga. I'm working from the bottom up. So that's your bottom 5. Your lowest graded was Hilton, then Sharp, Davis, Nick Anderson, who played 24 snaps, by the way. A lot of people asked, where's Nick Anderson? He played 24 snaps in the game. 11 of those were passing snaps. 13 of those snaps, he was run blocking. He's a big physical receiver, and he could do that. And I think, quite honestly, he was replacing Destin Hill, who got hurt. Destin Hill only played 2 snaps. He got hurt early in the game. I was told it was an upper body. Destin Hill started. But I don't think starting actually matters in this situation. It's just a matter of, who was on the field first, because they're going to rotate so much. But when Destin Hill went out with an injury, and I was told it was an upper body injury, when Destin Hill went out with injury, it was Nick Anderson who replaced him. So Nick Anderson ended up playing 24 snaps, 11 pass plays, 13 were run blocking plays. I'm not worried about Chris Hilton or Bauer Sharp. I think they're both outstanding, and they're going to be really impactful players. Bauer Sharp caught 5 passes in the ball game. He did get dinged, obviously, because he fumbled. And when you fumble, that's going to hurt your grade. His run blocking grade was a 58.4, and that needs to be better. But he was targeted 7 times, made 5 catches, 2 of them contested. If you look at a lot of what LSU did, especially after Tyree Adams went out late in the first half with the limping and then immediately returned, for the rest of the game, they were giving him help. Sharp, Donovan Green, who played in this game, Donovan Green played 8 snaps. 6 of them were passing plays. He was in there to help pass block. He was chipping and giving help on the left side. So that's primarily what the tight ends were doing in this ball game, was helping the new tackles not allow the end to bend, not them allowed to bend the edge there. So I'm not, listen, it wasn't a great day for Chris Hilton. He will have fantastic days. I am not worried about him. He's an outstanding receiver. He's going to make plays. And it was just one of those days where it wasn't his day, where they called his number. Those days will come. Bauer Sharp, I thought, was really good. He really got dinged for the fumble. His pass blocking grade was a 74.9. That was absolutely outstanding. Weston Davis and Paul Mabenga, that's a little bit of a red flag. And Davis's run blocking grade was a 48. Mabenga's run blocking grade was a 46. And those were the problems. Now, Mabenga's pass blocking grade was outstanding. It was an 81. If you look at the pass blocking grades, Braylon Moore was an 85, Josh Thompson was an 84, and then Mabenga was an 81. I mean, he was fantastic with his pass blocking grade. Tyree was at a 66, and I'm looking for Weston Davis was a 58. So that's great news. The run blocking grade is what really needs to improve. When you look at that bottom 5, there's 2 receivers, which I'm not worried about, and 2 offensive linemen, which is a little bit of a concern. You are facing a fantastic defensive front with a lot of talent. First game playing together. We need to see those. I'm not going to overreact. Someone's got to be at the bottom. We need to see those grades improve, however. But the thing that I've touched on here a little bit that is important to really focus on is the pass blocking grades from your offensive line. Braylon Moore was an 85.8. Josh Thompson was an 84. Paul Mabenga was an 81. Weston Davis was a 58. Tyree Adams was a 66. 4 of the 5 are great. Weston Davis at a 58, that's got to be better. But the bottom line is your pass protection was outstanding. And we were worried about that with that great offensive line from a year ago who were also outstanding. I mean, LSU allowed the 9th fewest sacks a season ago on the offensive line. And with all those guys gone, it was natural to think, how's that going to look this year? Well, they just aced a gigantic test. They'll have 1 sack. Nuss was sacked 1 time. So really, I thought that part of it was fantastic to see the pass blocking grade as good as it was with those guys, especially on the interior, led by Thompson and Moore and Thompson, I should say, 2 transfers who you brought in for that exact reason. Guys that weren't going to be overwhelmed in the moment, guys that weren't going to be overwhelmed looking at Parker and Woods and those guys in the defensive front, guys that were going to know their assignments, play sound football, and they did. Error-free football, and that was great to see from those 2 veterans anchoring the middle of your offensive line. Okay, that's a quick look at the offense. When we come back, we're going to flip it over and look at the defense. And boy, there was a lot of good to choose from. We'll dive into that next here on Locked on LSU, your team every day. I can't tell you how excited I am when I saw this pop up. I got a quick question for you. If you're a college football fan, which of course you are, you're watching this or listening to this. If you could go back in time, sit in the front row of your school's biggest rivalry game, what hat would you be wearing? Yes, I said, what hat would you be wearing? For me, not only would it was the game. These aren't just hats. It's the same vintage styles that fans wore back in the 80s and 90s. And guess what? They still go for the same price today that they did back then. When you use the code Locked On, you will get your vintage hat for $16.99. So head to thegamecaps.com, thegamecaps.com. Grab your team's classic bar or retro circle design and use code Locked On for an exclusive discount because legends wear the game. Today's show is also brought to you by Game Time. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up the Game Time app, and in just a couple of taps, saw amazing deals. Your favorite college football games as low as $25, and I love the upfront pricing. How many of us have been burned by those other ticketing apps where you think you're paying a certain price, you get the checkout, and all of a sudden here come the fees, and it's a completely different price? Not with Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Okay, let's dive into LSU's defensive PFF grades against Clemson. And as you might imagine, there was an awful lot of good. Your top 5 players defensively: Mansour Delane, who got the game ball, by the way, Patrick Payton, Bernard Gooden, AJ Haulcy, Harold Perkins. That was your top 5. What stands out about that top 5? You know the answer. You know the answer. Say it out loud. You're driving in your car. You're on the treadmill, taking your dog for a walk. Whatever you're doing, say it out loud. What stands out? Delane, Patrick Payton, Bernard Gooden, AJ Haulcy, Harold Perkins. What stands out? Top 4 transfers. Mansour Delane, 81.3. Patrick Payton, 74.9. Bernard Gooden, 73.6. AJ Haulcy, 71.1. Harold Perkins, 71.0. It's not just that. I'll say it again. What I've said all offseason. It's not just that they went and got numbers in the transfer portal. They went and got dudes in the transfer portal. They got grown men who are experienced with skins on the wall. Mansour Delane was a 2-year starter at Virginia Tech who was their best cornerback. He's LSU's best cornerback. Patrick Payton has darn near 40 career TFLs at Florida State. He's a 5th-year player. He's awesome. We talked about AJ Haulcy a lot last week, unfortunately, because he missed the first half. He plays the second half, and you see the way that he impacts the game. Halsey's grade was a 71.1, a 79.6 tackling grade, 64 in the pass rush, 66 in coverage. Remember last year? Your worst graded position was safety. What a change when 2 of your top 3 players defensively in these PFF rankings, 2 of the top 4 are defensive backs, Delane and Haulcy. By the way, Peyton and Gooden, defensive linemen. I mean, as amazing as Whit Weeks was your 7th highest graded player on defense. 1 spot behind DJ Pickett, by the way, who I got to talk about in just a quick second. So the transfer impact there is so noticeable for LSU, and in particular on the defensive side of the ball. Mansour Delane was awesome at Virginia Tech. He was in the ACC and went to an ACC school on Saturday night and balled out. He was targeted 8 times in coverage. He allowed 1 catch. He had 2 pass breakups. Obviously, he had the interception. So basically, he allowed 1 reception and got an interception. So Mansour Delane caught as many passes as the receivers he was guarding on the day. He had an 81.2 coverage grade. He was awesome. Someone asked me last week, whenever the Halsey news broke, if they might consider moving Delane to safety. No. Now you see why. He is your best corner, and he's your best corner by a mile, and he will draw the assignment every game against whoever the opponent's best guy is, and you can feel pretty good about winning plenty of those. Now, I also wanted to talk about DJ Pickett, because DJ Pickett ended up playing 25 snaps, 20 of those in coverage, 5 of those against the run. So effectively, when they needed an extra defensive back is when Pickett rolled out onto the field. And for his debut in that environment against that team with a 5th-year senior quarterback and 2 preseason All-ACC wide receivers, DJ Pickett was awesome. An overall grade of 67.5. His run defense was 60, which is not what you're expecting, but that shows he wasn't out of position. His tackling grade was a 73.1, and his coverage grade was a 67.3. I thought he was targeted once, did not allow a catch. It was so good to see him factor in the way he did with that many reps in his first game ever, and to stand up and to hold up. That's only going to allow his confidence to build. Now, it's also worth noting that there was no Ashton Stamps. Stamps played on, hang on. And I do want to clarify, because we're going to talk special teams in just a quick second here, but Pro Football Focus has not put out these special teams grades yet. Stamps played on, he did play, I'm so sorry. He played on one of the special teams unit. I was trying to give you the, he played kickoff. Thank you. I was trying to see. So Stamps played on the kickoff team, but did not play cornerback. That was PJ Woodland, who started opposite Mansour Delane. Woodland started at the right cornerback spot. And PJ Woodland played 43 snaps, 32 in coverage, 10 against the run. He rushed the passer once and obviously came up with a sack. So his pass rush grade of 75.5 is going to be pretty good. But what I was told when I asked about Ashton Stamps, I was wondering, was it something that maybe because Stamps was on the depth chart as the number 3 corner on the printed depth chart in the press box. And Stamps was number 3. And I was told flatly that he was beaten out. They went with PJ Woodland because they thought he was the better option. And for Stamps, who started out of necessity as a freshman and led the conference in pass breakups a year ago, to be beaten out in this game on the road against Clemson by a young guy in his second year in PJ Woodland it's a great hat tip to PJ Woodland. And Stamps is still very competent and capable of playing, and I'm sure will factor in. But this was a day where it was Delane, it was Woodland, and it was Pickett were the three guys at corner that mostly they relied on. So watching Ashton Stamps and what his role is going to be defensively is going to be interesting to continue to follow. Now, if we look at the bottom five defensively for LSU in this game, and look, there was so much good, it's hard to find fault with anything. But going from the bottom up, Tamarcus Cooley was your lowest rated player. Javen Toviano is next. He only played 5 snaps. Jacobian Guillory, West Weeks, and then Gabe Relaford. That was your bottom 5. But even still, Cooley, I'm just not worried about. He's an outstanding player, and someone has to be at the bottom. And unfortunately for Tamarcus Cooley, he was there at the bottom. He missed a tackle. He allowed 3 catches on 3 targets, so that was going to ding him. But he showed his versatility, and this is what I think is important about Cooley. He was at free safety on 23 snaps. He was in the slot on 26 snaps and played 8 snaps in the box. So I'm not going to complain about Tamarcus Cooley. Okay, he gave up 3 receptions, so Pro Football Focus dings him. That's one of the ones where I would say the eye test doesn't match the grade. I thought everyone on LSU's defense played awesome, and it's hard to find fault with any of them. The one other thing that I'd be remiss if we didn't touch on is Jardin Gilbert. Jardin Gilbert started in the place of AJ Haulcy, who was suspended. He played 26 snaps, 14 in coverage. He rushed the passer twice, 10 in run defense, and he graded out at a 64.8. 64.8. Remember that, 64.8. 64.8. Because 64.8. Because last year on the season, and I've said this a bunch, Jardin Gilbert was your lowest graded starter by Pro Football Focus on the season at a 53.2. 53.2 last season. In this game, starting in a pinch, he graded out a 64.8. That is more than serviceable. That is really good. So hat tip to Jardin Gilbert stepping in that spot, veteran player, and playing very solid for LSU. But AJ Haulcy was awesome. And that's why AJ Haulcy is going to continue to start. Okay, we'll wrap up with a few little tidbits on special teams when we come back. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette Ready. Rougiette Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiette's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. And it's completely online. Rougiette connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. So head to rougiette.com/lockedoncollege and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/lockedoncollege and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiette website for full safety information. Before we wrap up, I want to give you a few notes on LSU's special teams, but we do have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. So this is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't like, and answer questions about our advertising. So please go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcasts.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. And thank you sincerely for helping us out. So I thought LSU on special teams was solid. We do not have special teams grades for this game. The unfortunate thing that happened to LSU in special teams is that you did have a couple of penalties. One that wiped out a long two on punting situations. One where you had a holding. This was on after Clemson's first possession, the 3 and out, and then the big one was on Xavier Thomas's return, which ended up being in the second half, which ended up being about a 30-yard penalty, because you had the penalty went back from the spot of the foul and ended up costing LSU. Instead of having the ball around midfield trying to ice the game away, they ended up moving. It was when LSU got the ball back with 3:22 to go. It cost you about 30 yards, and I mean, you could have maybe potentially gotten a first down and kicked a field goal and made a 2-score game, and it would have been over. But that's just one thing worth considering. But I think what's super important to remember is that you have core special teamers that are not starters on offense or defense, but are really good players. Devon Keys, for example, played 8 snaps on special teams. Charles Ross, Javen Toviano, Deshaun Spears, Malachi Lane, CJ Jim Coyley. These are all guys that are playing on all of these special teams units. And as a result, you have better talent and are upgrading your special teams unit. I mean, Devon Keys is taking reps with the ones at linebacker at times. I mean, he's your next guy to rotate in. He's out there running down, covering all the special teams units. So your coverage units should be even better this year because of the talent you have there as they integrate it. And again, as Pro Football Focus updates those special teams grades, we'll share them with you. They're just not updated yet. So Tigers win 17-10. We will bask in the afterglow of this one for quite some time, but it's almost time to turn the page to Louisiana Tech and start getting ready for week 2. And we'll be here for it on Locked On LSU. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked On LSU, your team every day.